First News with Keeler in the morning on WIBX and WIBX950.com.
John Decker is with Gray TV. He is the White House correspondent, and he's the worldwide correspondent this morning. We're talking to him now from Geneva. And John, of course, was there yesterday for that big meeting between Putin and Biden. John, good morning.
Good morning to you. Hope you're doing well today. It's afternoon for me here. I'm still in Geneva. I fly back this evening, Bill. But indeed, I was at the summit yesterday at the press conference. And obviously, those things don't happen every day. The last time this happened, of course, was when Trump met with Putin, and that was in Helsinki, Finland, a few years ago.
Yeah. Let's start with the Putin press conference. It was just unbelievably I was glued to it. I couldn't walk away from it. It was so interesting to see firsthand him respond, and of course, put all the blame on the United States. They're doing nothing wrong. But Vladimir Putin is a pretty smart and slick character.
Well, he is former head of the KGB, so he's pretty smart. Watching him conduct that press conference, you got a sense about why he likes mixing it up with the press. His press conference, Bill, was much longer than President Biden's press conference. And he took questions from many different news organizations, not just the Russia media, but also from CNN and from BBC, from ABC News as well.
Yeah.
And, you get a sense about what he's like behind closed doors, just based upon how he answers some of those questions.
On the other hand, President Biden, the press conference was shorter, but what was your take on that? Depending on the network you watch or listen to, you get a completely different story, very skewed story on both ends of the spectrum. What is your take on Biden's press conference yesterday?
Yeah, here in Geneva, I flip around, and they don't have the variety that they have in America of the stations, the cable networks that we're familiar. They have CNN, so I know how CNN reported everything. My take on it is this. President Biden had lowered expectations for the summit, and I think that because he lowered expectations, he met his goals. He wanted to meet with President Putin. He wanted to improve relations, even if it was in a minor way, with Russia, make the relationship between the U.S. and Russia more stable.
Yep.
And if those are your goals, you met your goals. But if the goal was a major breakthrough, then you would have been very disappointed in the way that this summit worked its way out.
Were there? We've heard reports of Biden with a cheat sheet, and I don't know. Is that a big deal? I mean, has every president had that? It didn't look like Putin had a cheat sheet. I'll tell you that.
No, Putin. He doesn't need notes when he responds to questions. He doesn't need a teleprompter. But with President Biden, he had a cheat sheet in terms of the reporters that he was going to call upon.
Oh, okay, that's what I thought.
I don't know if that cheat sheet applied to answering questions that would be posed of him. I think he can handle that part of the equation.
Are you on the list? Well, there are some pictures at the NewYorkPost.com.
That was good.
Are you on the list? Were you on the list?
I wasn't on the list yesterday, so no, I was not on the list. As you know, I would be on the list pretty regularly with President Trump. We had a great relationship.
Yeah.
With President Biden, he prefers taking questions from some of the regulars from the AP and from Reuters and the New York Times and CNN and MSNBC. And then I'm in, I think, tier number 2 in terms of his list. That's the top tier. I'm tier number 2.
Is it tier number 2 or fear number 1? That's what.
That's right.
There's the question.
Yeah, you're going to ask him tricky questions like, Mr. President, what's your name?
Before you ask anything, we're about to lose the TV here. We'll be back here tomorrow morning. But John Decker in Geneva. The reality is this was more of a traditional meeting between the United States and Russia. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. But keep in mind when President Trump met with President Putin a few years ago in Finland, they had a joint press conference that concluded their summit. Back in 1985, you had President Reagan meeting with Mikhail Gorbachev for their first summit here in Geneva, and they too had a joint press conference. So President Biden did not follow that model. He wanted to have solo press conferences for whatever reason, and here, I don't even know if he achieved his goal because now we're judging each press conference.
Right.
And so we're talking about it in that sense. Who did a better job at their press conference?
Yeah,
Maybe it would have been a better idea
right.
if you have it during press conference.
And interestingly, you know how Fox News responded, would have responded, and how they did respond yesterday, rather critical of Biden. But on the other side, you said you watched CNN. I thought they were apologetic. They were so impressed that it was unbelievable. It's almost like they were an extension of his PR team. I couldn't believe it yesterday.
I agree with you. I can't disagree with anything that you said. It did seem like they were reading from talking points put out by the White House in a lot of their coverage. And, you know, that's what you get with CNN. That's what you get with MSNBC as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Not
on great TV, though.
The Zelny guy,
not on great TV.
He's a personality on CNN. I'm not that familiar with him, but I've read some of his comments this morning. He was alone quite critical of Biden, saying this is kind of classic Biden. You ask him a question, he snaps at somebody, comes back and says, I didn't mean it, but never answers the question.
Right. The spectacle is the snapping. John, we are out of time. Hard news break coming up, and we appreciate you, and we'll speak with you when you're back home next week.
I look forward to it. Thanks again,
right.
Bill. Have a great day and a great weekend. I'll talk to you next week.
Safe travels.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
John Decker from Gray TV.